The war room was cold. Not cold like ice, but cold like the eyes of the people inside it. Steel walls, blue lights, maps of stars floating in the air like ghosts. General Threx stood in the center of the room. He was tall, with gray skin and 3 eyes that never blinked. He was a commander of the Keldrath Empire, a power that had ruled 1,000 worlds for 1,000 years. He had seen many species fall. He had seen many wars end in one single day. Today, he was looking at a new target, a small blue planet, a weak species, humans. "Show me the reports again," Threx said. A young officer stepped forward. His name was Vex. He was nervous because Threx did not like mistakes. "Yes, General," Vex said. He touched a panel, and a hologram appeared. It showed a human, a soft creature. No claws, no armor on its skin, no natural weapons. "This is what we are afraid of?" Threx said, and he laughed. It was a hard laugh, like rocks breaking. "Look at it. Weak legs, weak arms, no wings, no venom. It cannot even see in the dark." The other officers in the room laughed too. Not because it was truly funny, but because when a general laughed, everyone laughed. Vex continued. "General, the reports say humans have short lives, only 70 to 90 years if they are lucky. Their bodies break easily. Their bones snap under small pressure. Their reflexes are slower than almost every known species in the galaxy." "And their weapons?" Threx asked. "Basic," Vex said. "Chemical explosions, metal projectiles. Nothing close to our plasma technology. Nothing close to our shields." Threx nodded slowly. He turned to look at the star map. One small blue dot was blinking. Earth. Home of the weak ones. They call themselves humanity, Threx said, almost mocking the word. A proud name for a fragile species. An older officer, Commander Drall, stepped forward. Drall had gray hair and old scars on his face. He had fought in real wars, not just simulations. Something in his voice was different from the others. "General, may I speak?" Drall asked. "Speak," Threx said, still looking at the map. "I do not trust this," Drall said. "Every report says the same thing. Weak, fragile, slow, but something feels wrong." Threx turned to him, his 3 eyes narrowing. "What feels wrong, Commander?" "If they are truly this weak," Drall said, "why have 3 of our scout ships lost contact near their system? Why did the 4th ship send only static before it disappeared?" The room went quiet for a moment. Vex looked down at his console, uncomfortable. Threx waved his hand, dismissing the question like it was nothing. "Old ships, equipment failure. This species has no fleet, no weapons capable of destroying our ships. You are seeing shadows, Commander Drall." "I have fought for 200 years, Drall said quietly. "I have learned to trust shadows." Threx ignored him and turned back to the room. "Prepare the invasion fleet. We will take their largest colony first, not Earth itself. Too many eyes are watching that world. We will take Colony Haven 9. A message to their entire species. Surrender or be erased." "Yes, General," the officers said together. Drall stayed silent. He watched the blue dot on the map. Something about it made his old scars feel cold. Far away, on Colony Haven 9, the sun was setting behind red mountains. The colony did not look like a fortress, it looked like a small town. Simple houses, a market street, children playing near a fountain, farmers walking home after a long day. Everything looked calm, everything looked normal. But 2 weeks earlier, everything had changed. Inside a building near the edge of the colony, a woman named Sarah Chen sat in front of a screen. She was the colony's lead engineer, but tonight, she was something else. A soldier preparing for war. Her office was full of maps, wires, and small green lights. On the wall, a large screen showed the positions of incoming Empire ships, red dots, getting closer every hour. A man walked in. His name was Marcus Reyes, the colony's defense commander. He was tired. His eyes had dark circles under them from too many sleepless nights. "Status?" he asked. "Same as before," Sarah said, not looking away from the screen. Empire fleet is 3 days out. 4 scout ships already came close. We took care of all 4. No survivors from their side? Marcus asked. None, Sarah said. No signals reached their homeworld. As far as the Empire knows, those scout ships just vanished. Marcus nodded slowly. Good. That buys us time. He walked to the window and looked outside. The colony looked peaceful, almost too peaceful. You think they still believe we're weak? He asked. Sarah finally looked up from her screen. There was something hard in her eyes, something that had not been there 2 years ago, before the first contact with the Empire. They've believed it since the beginning, she said. Every report we let them see. Every fake weakness we showed. They think our bodies are fragile, and yes, that part is true. But they think that means we cannot fight. They never understood the real difference. Which is? Marcus asked, even though he already knew the answer. They live for centuries, Sarah said. So they never had to be creative. They never had to be fast learners. They never had to survive real extinction events. Humans did. We survived ice ages. We survived diseases that killed half our population. We survived our own wars, our own mistakes. Every single time we adapted. We got smarter. We got better. Marcus turned back to her. And now they're bringing a fleet to destroy a colony they think is full of farmers and children. Let them think that, Sarah said. Outside in the fields near the colony, something was happening that no Empire scanner could detect. Underground, deep below the soft dirt, long metal tunnels stretched for miles. Weapons were stored there. Not simple explosions and metal projectiles like the Empire believed. These were new weapons, human weapons, built in secret, tested in secret, hidden from every eye in the galaxy. 2 years ago, humanity had made first contact with a dying alien scout ship. The crew, close to death, had begged the humans for help. And humans, being humans, had helped them, even though they did not have to. In return, the aliens, a small forgotten species called the Voth, had shared their knowledge. Ancient knowledge, older than the Empire itself. Knowledge about the Empire's weaknesses, about their old wars, about species who had once stood up to them and were erased from history books so no one would ever try again. Humanity had learned everything, and they had prepared, not with anger, not with hate, but with patience. Because the humans understood something the Empire never did. Underestimating your enemy is the most dangerous mistake in war. 3 days later, the Empire fleet arrived above Colony Haven 9. General Threx stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Devourer's Pride. Below him, on the main screen, the small human colony looked exactly as the reports had described. Simple, undefended, weak. No orbital defense system detected, an officer reported. No ground-to-air weapons detected, another said. No fleet in the system, a third confirmed. Threx smiled, his sharp teeth showing. As expected, send the message. A communication officer opened a channel. Threx's voice would now be heard across the entire colony. People of Colony Haven 9, Threx said, his voice cold and full of power. You stand before the might of the Kaldrath Empire. Resistance is meaningless. Surrender now, and your lives will be spared as slaves to the Empire. Resist, and you will be erased, as many species before you have been erased. You have 1 hour to respond. The channel closed. Threx turned to Commander Drall, who was standing quietly near the back of the bridge. You see, Commander? Threx said. No response yet. No defense. No fear even worth mentioning. This will be over within the day. Drall did not answer immediately. His old eyes were studying the planet below. Something about the silence bothered him more than any weapon could. General, Drall said carefully, may I ask why the colony has not sent any distress call? Not to their homeworld? Not to any allies, nothing at all? Threx paused. He had not thought about that detail. Perhaps they know it is useless, Threx said, but his voice was less certain now. Or perhaps, Draal said quietly, they already know we are here, and they are not afraid. Before Threx could answer, an alarm went off. The communication officer turned around quickly. General, we're receiving a response from the colony. Play it, Threx ordered. The screen flickered. Instead of a human leader begging for mercy, or crying, or surrendering, the screen showed something else entirely. Nothing, no image, no voice. Just silence, and one single line of text appearing on the screen written in the Empire's own language. We're waiting. The bridge went silent. What does that mean? An officer whispered. Threx's smile faded slowly from his face. For the first time in many years, a small, unfamiliar feeling entered his chest. Doubt. Bring the fleet closer, Threx ordered, his voice sharper now. Full sensor sweep of the colony. I want to know every single thing on that planet. Before we land a single soldier. The officers worked quickly. But minute by minute, their reports made less and less sense. General, sensors show no weapons on the surface. General, no fleet detected anywhere in this system. General, the colony's shields, if they even have shields, are not active. Threx clenched his fists. Everything looked exactly as weak as the old reports had said, and yet, that single message kept repeating in his mind. We're waiting. Draal stepped closer to him, his voice low so only Threx could hear. General, I recommend we retreat and gather more information before. No, Threx said sharply. We did not build this empire by running from farmers and weak creatures with no real weapons. We attack. Now. He turned to his officers. Send down the invasion force, full assault on the colony. Take no prisoners unless ordered. Yes, General. Hundreds of Empire dropships launched from the fleet, falling toward the colony like a storm of black metal. Soldiers checked their weapons, confident, almost bored. This was supposed to be an easy mission. A simple show of power against a weak species. Draal watched the dropships fall from the bridge window, his old heart heavy with worry. Draal stepped closer, his voice low. General, I recommend an immediate full retreat. Regroup the remaining fleet and reassess before— No, Threx said, his voice suddenly sharp and cold again, anger replacing his shock. We will not retreat from a colony of farmers and engineers. Send down the second wave, full force. I want that colony erased from existence. General, that is an order, Commander, Threx roared. Draal stared at him for a long moment, his old eyes filled with something close to sadness. Yes, General, he said quietly. The order went out. More dropships launched from the fleet, carrying hundreds of additional soldiers, heavier weapons, and armored vehicles this time. Threx was determined to prove, no matter the cost, that the Empire could not be humiliated by a species they had always considered beneath them. Deep underground, Sarah Chen watched the new wave of ships approaching on her screen, her expression unreadable. They're sending more, she said. How many? Marcus asked. Almost triple the first wave, Sarah said. Heavier armor, better weapons. Marcus's jaw tightened slightly, but his voice remained steady. Then it's time to move to Phase 2. Sarah nodded, opening a new set of controls on her console. A large map appeared, showing the colony and a wide area of forest and hills surrounding it. Evacuation teams, this is command, Marcus said into his headset. Begin Phase 2 immediately. Move all personnel to secondary shelters. Combat teams, prepare to engage. Across the underground tunnels, human soldiers, real soldiers, not farmers, not civilians, began moving into position. These were not the soft, weak creatures the Empire believed in. These were trained fighters, hidden for 2 years, preparing for exactly this moment. They wore simple armor, nothing as advanced as Empire technology, but practical, light, and built for speed. Their weapons were human-made, some using knowledge shared by the Voth, adapted and improved by human engineers who refused to accept impossible as an answer. A woman named Captain Elena Vasquez checked her weapon one final time before turning to her team. Listen up, she said, her voice firm and clear. They think this is still one-sided. They think we're hiding because we're scared. Let's show them the truth. Her soldiers nodded, their faces calm and focused, not the panicked fear the Empire expected from a weak species, but quiet determination built from years of preparation. Move out, Elena said. The second wave of Empire soldiers landed across the colony, spreading out with heavy weapons raised, expecting to finish off any remaining resistance. Instead, they found themselves walking into narrow streets and destroyed buildings, perfect ground for close combat. Exactly the kind of battlefield the Empire's usual open-field tactics were not built for. The first shots rang out from hidden positions among the ruins. Empire soldiers dropped one by one, caught completely off guard by an enemy that knew every corner of the battlefield. Where are they firing from? An Empire soldier shouted, ducking behind a broken wall. I don't know. I can't see anyone. Human soldiers moved quickly and quietly through the ruins, using knowledge of their own colony to stay hidden, striking fast and disappearing before the Empire could properly respond. It was nothing like the battles the Empire had trained for. There was no open battlefield, no clear enemy lines, just chaos, confusion, and an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. On the flagship, Threx watched the second wave slowly breaking apart the same way the first one had. This is not possible, he whispered, watching more red markers, representing his own soldiers, disappearing from the map. This is not possible. Draal stood silently beside him, watching the battle unfold with a heavy heart, not surprised, but deeply troubled by how badly this mission had gone. General, an officer said, his voice tight with fear, we're receiving strange readings from deep in the planet's crust. Something large is powering up beneath the colony. Threx turned sharply. What kind of readings? I don't know, General, the officer said. I've never seen anything like this before. Draal's old eyes narrowed as he studied the data on the screen. Slowly, a look of horrified realization crossed his face. General, he said quietly, I believe this was never just a defense of one colony. What are you talking about? Threx demanded. Before Draal could answer, the communication channel opened again. Marcus Reyes's voice returned, calm as before, but this time carrying a different weight. "General Threx," Marcus said, "you have lost 2 full waves of soldiers today. You have lost dropships, weapons, and hundreds of lives, all because your empire refused to believe that a species without natural claws or venom could still be dangerous." Threx said nothing, his hands trembling with barely controlled rage. "This colony was a message," Marcus continued. "Not just to you, General, but to your entire empire. Humanity has been quiet for a reason. We have been watching. We have been learning. And we have been preparing, not just here, but everywhere your empire has touched." The bridge went completely silent. "You called us the weakest species in the galaxy," Marcus said. "Today you learned that weak bodies do not mean weak minds. And soon, General, your empire will learn something far more important." The transmission cut off, leaving Threx staring at a dark screen, surrounded by the wreckage of his once confident invasion. Draal placed a hand gently on Threx's shoulder, something rare between a general and his commander. "Sir," Draal said quietly, "I believe we need to contact Empire High Command immediately. Whatever is happening here, this is no longer just about one colony." Threx did not answer right away. He simply stared at the burning world below. The world he had once called weak, now slowly proving to be something far more dangerous than anyone in the Empire had ever imagined. Somewhere deep beneath the colony, the strange energy readings continued to grow stronger and stronger, building toward something none of the Empire's scanners could fully understand. Something big was coming, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the Kaldrath Empire was not ready for it. Far from Colony Haven 9, deep inside a mountain on Earth, a different room glowed with quiet light. This was not a war room built for show, like the Empire's. There were no dramatic lights, no tall chairs, no officers standing at attention out of fear. This room was simple. Screens covered the walls, showing data from Colony Haven 9 in real time. A dozen people worked quietly at their stations, calm and focused like this was just another day at the office. At the center of the room stood a woman named Admiral Elena Cross. She was not young. Gray streaks ran through her dark hair, and lines of experience marked her face. She had spent 30 years preparing for this exact moment, ever since humanity first learned the truth about the Kaldrath Empire. She watched the main screen carefully, showing a live feed from Colony Haven 9. Smoke rose from the ruins. Small human combat teams moved through the streets, still fighting, still holding their ground against the second wave of Empire soldiers. Beside her stood a younger man, Dr. Adrian Cole, the scientist who had helped design the underground weapon systems, based on the borrowed knowledge from the Voth. "Casualty reports?" Elena asked, not looking away from the screen. "Minimal, Admiral," Adrian said, checking his tablet. 14 wounded, 2 critical, no deaths yet. "And the Empire?" Adrian allowed himself a small, tired smile. "Confirmed over 300 dead, 6 dropships destroyed. Their second wave is already breaking apart." Elena nodded slowly, but there was no celebration in her expression, only quiet focus. "Good," she said. "But this is only the beginning. The real test comes now." Adrian glanced at her. "You mean the Colossus?" Elena finally turned to look at him. "Is it ready?" "Almost," Adrian said. "The Voth technology took years to fully understand, but our engineers finished the final calibrations 3 days ago. It's never been tested in real combat." "It will be tested today," Elena said firmly. 2 years earlier, when the dying Voth scout ship had crashed near a remote human research base, the crew had shared more than just old stories about the Empire. They had shared blueprints, ancient technology, forgotten by most of the galaxy, capable of things the Empire could never imagine from a species they thought was primitive. One of those blueprints was for a massive underground defense system, buried deep beneath key colonies, powerful enough to change the outcome of an entire battle. Humanity had built one, just one, hidden beneath Colony Haven 9, waiting silently for exactly this moment. Activate the Colossus, Elena ordered. Across the underground base at Colony Haven 9, Sarah Chen received the signal on her console. Her eyes widened slightly, and for the first time since the battle began, a small, determined smile crossed her face. "Marcus," she said. "Command just gave the order." Marcus turned to her sharply. "The Colossus?" Sarah nodded. "It's time." On the flagship above, General Threx paced back and forth across the bridge, his mind racing with confusion and anger. The second wave of soldiers was still fighting on the ground, but the reports coming in were growing worse by the minute. "General," an officer said nervously, "ground forces are requesting immediate reinforcement. They're being pushed back into the Eastern District." "Pushed back by what?" Threx snapped. "Farmers with old rifles?" "Sir, the human resistance is organized, better armed than anything in our reports. They're using tactics that don't match any known human military doctrine." Drall stood near the window, watching the battle from a distance through the ship's scanners. His old face was tight with worry. "General," he said quietly, "I strongly recommend contacting Empire High Command now. This situation is far beyond what a single fleet can control." Threx's pride would not let him admit defeat so easily. "We still outnumber them. Send the heavy assault vehicles, crush their resistance completely." "General." "Do it!" Threx shouted. Drall hesitated, then gave the order. More equipment began deploying toward the surface, heavy tanks built for crushing enemy lines, weapons far beyond anything a small colony should have been able to resist. But as the tanks moved into position near the colony center, the ground beneath them began to shake once again. Harder than before, stronger than any of the earlier explosions. "General," an officer said, his voice trembling. "That energy signature we detected earlier, it's spiking rapidly." Threx turned back to the main screen, watching the ground near the colony's center crack open, dust and smoke rising into the sky. Slowly, impossibly, something began to rise from beneath the earth. It was massive. A machine unlike anything the Empire had ever seen, built with strange, ancient technology mixed with human engineering. Metal plates unfolded like wings, revealing weapon systems that hummed with a strange blue energy. It stood taller than any Empire tank, taller than most buildings in the colony. "What is that?" Threx whispered. Drall stared at the screen, his old eyes wide with shock. "General, I have never seen technology like this. Not from any species." The machine, humanity's Colossus, turned slowly toward the approaching Empire tanks. Its weapon systems glowed brighter, energy building rapidly. Inside her control room, Sarah Chen watched the readings carefully. Colossus systems fully online, targeting Empire heavy units now. "Fire when ready," Marcus said. The Colossus fired. A beam of blue energy tore across the battlefield, striking the first Empire tank directly. There was no explosion, no fire. The tank simply disappeared, vaporized instantly, leaving nothing but a scorched patch of ground where it once stood. The remaining tanks stopped in their tracks, their crews staring in shock at what had just happened to their comrades. On the flagship, the entire bridge fell into stunned silence. "General," an officer whispered, "we just lost an entire tank in a single hit. There's no debris, no wreckage, nothing." Threx's hands gripped the edge of his console so tightly his knuckles turned pale. "That's not possible. This species has no technology capable of that level of power." "Perhaps," Drall said quietly, his voice heavy with realization. "They were never as behind in technology as we believed. Perhaps they simply hid it, waiting for the right moment to use it." The Colossus fired again, and again, each shot destroying another Empire vehicle with terrifying precision. The remaining tanks tried to retreat, but the massive machine moved faster than anyone expected, cutting off their escape routes with calculated, almost surgical movements. Within minutes, the entire heavy assault force was gone. Not damaged, not disabled, completely erased from the battlefield. Threx stood frozen, staring at the empty spaces on his tactical map where his tanks used to be. Sir, Draal said carefully, we need to make a decision. Now. Threx's jaw clenched. Every instinct in his body told him to keep fighting, to prove that the Empire could not be defeated by a species they had ruled as inferior for so long. But the numbers on the screen told a different story, a story of complete and total failure. General, Draal pressed again, his voice firmer this time. If we do not retreat now, we will lose this entire fleet. Before Threx could respond, a new transmission opened on the main screen. This time, it was not Marcus Reyes. It was Admiral Elena Cross speaking calmly from her command center on Earth. General Threx, she said, her voice steady and clear. My name is Admiral Elena Cross of the United Earth Defense Forces. I imagine by now you understand that your reports about humanity were incomplete. Threx said nothing, his three eyes locked on the screen. For years your empire studied us from a distance, Elena continued. You saw our weak bodies, our short lives, and you assumed that meant weakness. What you failed to see was our history. A species that survived countless disasters, wars, and near extinctions, not through strength but through intelligence, adaptability, and an unwillingness to ever give up. You attacked one of our colonies expecting an easy victory, she said. Instead, you lost hundreds of soldiers, dozens of vehicles, and multiple dropships all in a single day. Threx's fists shook with barely controlled anger. This is not over, he said finally, his voice low and dangerous. No, Elena agreed calmly. It is not. But I want you to understand something clearly, General. This was never meant to be a war of conquest for us. We do not want your worlds. We do not want your resources. We simply want to be left alone. She paused for a moment, letting her words sink in. But if your empire continues down this path, she continued, if you continue to see us as nothing more than weak creatures to be conquered, then you will learn, again and again, exactly how wrong that belief truly is. The transmission ended. Threx stood in silence, staring at the dark screen, surrounded by officers too afraid to speak, watching a battle that had completely slipped from his control. Draal finally broke the silence. General, I recommend a full retreat, immediately. For a long moment Threx said nothing. His pride screamed at him to continue the fight, to send every remaining soldier down to the surface, to prove that the Empire could not be humiliated this way. But deep down, buried beneath his anger, a small part of him understood that Draal was right. Order the retreat, Threx said quietly, the words feeling like poison in his mouth. Yes, General, Draal said, relief and sadness mixing in his voice. The order went out across the fleet. Remaining Empire soldiers on the ground began pulling back toward the last surviving dropships, moving quickly through the smoke and ruins of a battle they had never truly understood. On the ground, Captain Elena Vasquez watched the retreat through her scope, her team gathered around her, exhausted but alive. They're pulling back, she said. Do we pursue? One of her soldiers asked. Elena shook her head slowly. No. Let them go. Let them tell their empire exactly what happened here today. As the last Empire dropships lifted off from the ruined colony, carrying the broken remains of what was supposed to be an easy invasion force, General Threx watched from the flagship, his mind replaying the events of the day over and over. Weak reports, confident predictions, complete and total failure. Draal stood beside him, watching the same view, his old heart heavy with the weight of everything that had happened. General, he said quietly, what do we tell Empire High Command? Threx did not answer right away. He stared at the burning colony below. The colony he had once dismissed as an easy target, now a symbol of the Empire's first true defeat in centuries. We tell them the truth, Threx said finally, his voice quiet and hollow. We tell them that humanity was never weak. We were simply blind. As the Empire fleet began its retreat, preparing to limp back toward their nearest supply station, none of them noticed a small, quiet transmission being sent from Colony Haven 9's remaining tower, aimed not at their retreating fleet, but far beyond it, toward the heart of Empire territory itself, a signal humanity had been waiting years to send. The real war was only just beginning. 3 weeks passed after the Battle of Colony Haven 9. On the Kaldrath Empire's capital world, Threxa Prime, the sky was always a deep purple, lit by 2 suns that never fully set. Tall towers of black metal stretched into the clouds, home to the Empire's high command, the rulers of 1,000 worlds. Inside the tallest tower, a massive council chamber held 12 seats, each one belonging to a member of the Empire's ruling council. Today, only 11 were filled. The 12th seat, empty, belonged to General Threx, who stood instead in the center of the room, facing judgment. He looked different than he had 3 weeks earlier, thinner, tired. His confident posture was gone, replaced by the weight of failure pressing down on his shoulders. Grand Chancellor Voss, the oldest member of the council, sat at the head of the table. His skin was pale gray, marked with deep wrinkles from centuries of life. His eyes, sharp and cold, studied Threx carefully. "General Threx," Voss said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You were sent to conquer a single, undefended human colony. A simple mission, a demonstration of Empire strength before the full invasion of their homeworld." "Yes, Chancellor," Threx said quietly. "Instead," Voss continued, "you returned with less than half your fleet. Over 400 soldiers dead. Every tank destroyed. Every dropship from the first 2 waves gone. And most concerning of all," Voss paused, letting the silence grow heavy in the room. "You discovered that this weak species possesses technology capable of erasing our heaviest armored vehicles in a single strike." Threx said nothing, his eyes fixed on the floor. "Explain to this council," Voss said, "how our intelligence reports could be so catastrophically wrong." Threx took a slow breath. "Chancellor, our reports were based on old observations, decades old in some cases. We assumed a species with fragile bodies would remain fragile in strength and technology. We were wrong. Humanity used that assumption against us. They allowed us to believe they were weak while secretly preparing for exactly this kind of confrontation." "And the technology they used?" another council member asked. "The weapon that destroyed our tanks instantly?" "Unknown origin, Chancellor," Threx admitted. "Commander Draal believes it may be connected to older, forgotten technology, possibly from a species we assumed extinct centuries ago." Murmurs spread across the council chamber. The idea that a supposedly weak species could have access to ancient, powerful technology was deeply unsettling. Voss raised a hand, silencing the room. "This council authorized a full invasion fleet to follow your initial assault, General. A fleet meant to conquer humanity's homeworld once Colony Haven 9 fell as an example to the rest of their kind." Threx's chest tightened. "Chancellor, I would advise extreme caution before—" "That fleet has already departed," Voss interrupted coldly. 3 days ago, under the command of Fleet Admiral Cressa." Threx's eyes widened. "Chancellor, if Colony Haven 9 was merely a demonstration of their true capabilities, then Earth itself will be far more heavily defended. Sending an entire fleet without proper reconnaissance could result in—" "Do not lecture this council on strategy, General," Voss said sharply. "You are the one who failed to conquer a single colony." The room fell silent again. Threx lowered his head, unable to argue against his own failure. But deep in his mind, a small, uncomfortable thought continued to grow. If Colony Haven 9, a secondary colony, held technology capable of destroying an entire assault force this easily, what horrors awaited an unprepared fleet arriving at humanity's actual homeworld? Far away, in the depths of space, Fleet Admiral Cressa's massive invasion force approached the edge of the Sol system, home to Earth itself. Cressa was young for her rank, ambitious, and eager to succeed where General Threx had failed. Her fleet was larger than the one sent to Colony Haven 9, filled with newer ships, heavier weapons, and thousands of soldiers ready to prove the Empire's dominance once and for all. "Admiral," an officer reported, "we are entering the outer edge of their solar system. No enemy ships detected yet. Cressa smiled confidently. Good. Continue forward. We will crush their homeworld before they even know we've arrived. But as her fleet moved deeper into the system, passing quietly through the darkness of space, none of her sensors detected the thousands of small cloaked satellites scattered silently throughout the system, watching, recording, and transmitting every single detail of the Empire's approach back to Earth's true command center. Admiral Elena Cross stood once again in her underground command room, watching new data appear on her screens. They've entered the system, Adrian said beside her. Fleet size? Elena asked. Larger than Colony Haven 9's attackers, Adrian confirmed. Nearly triple the number of ships. Elena's expression remained calm, unshaken. As expected. Should we activate planetary defenses? Adrian asked. Elena shook her head slowly. Not yet. Let them get closer. Let them believe, just a little longer, that Earth truly is as undefended as their old reports claim. Adrian nodded, understanding the strategy completely. Just like Colony Haven 9, humanity's greatest weapon was not simply their technology, it was patience. Days passed as the Empire fleet moved closer to Earth, growing more confident with every hour that passed without resistance. Admiral Cressa stood on her flagship's bridge, watching the small blue planet appear larger on her main screen. Still no defensive response, an officer reported. No ships, no orbital weapons detected. Just as General Threx's reports described before his failure, Cressa said, a hint of arrogance in her voice. Perhaps his mistake was underestimating his own strength, not overestimating theirs. She turned to her communication officer. Open a channel to the planet. It's time they understood the true power of the Empire. The channel opened, broadcasting across Earth's communication networks. People of Earth, Cressa announced, her voice cold and commanding. This is Fleet Admiral Cressa of the Kuldrath Empire. Your colony at Haven 9 has already tasted the consequences of resistance. Surrender your homeworld now, and your species may yet survive as servants of the Empire. Silence followed for a long moment, long. Then a response came. Not from a frightened leader, but from Admiral Elena Cross herself, her voice calm and unshaken. Fleet Admiral Cressa, Elena said. My name is Admiral Elena Cross, and on behalf of humanity, I want to thank you for something very important. Cressa's confident smile faltered slightly. Thank me? Yes, Elena continued. Thank you for bringing your entire fleet directly into the one place we have spent the last 2 years preparing for. Before Cressa could respond, alarms suddenly blared across her bridge. Admiral, massive energy readings detected across the entire system. They're coming from multiple points, not just the planet. Cressa's confidence shattered instantly. What? Show me. The main screen revealed dozens of previously hidden defense platforms, scattered throughout Earth's orbit, activating simultaneously. Each platform hummed with the same strange blue energy that had destroyed the Empire's tanks at Colony Haven 9, but on a much larger, far more terrifying scale. That's not possible, Cressa whispered, watching her sensors struggle to process the sheer size of humanity's true defenses. Our report said, Your reports were designed to be wrong, Elena said calmly. Every observation your scouts made over the years, every piece of intelligence your Empire gathered was carefully controlled. We showed you exactly what we wanted you to see, allowing your arrogance to grow, waiting patiently for this exact moment. The orbital platforms fired in unison. Beams of blue energy tore through space, striking Empire ships with devastating precision. Entire vessels disappeared in an instant, vaporized just like the tanks at Colony Haven 9, leaving nothing but empty space where powerful warships once stood. Panic spread rapidly across Cressa's fleet as ship after ship fell under the relentless assault. Communication channels flooded with desperate cries for retreat, but there was nowhere to run. Humanity's defenses surrounded them from every angle, cutting off every possible escape route. Fall back! Full retreat! Cressa screamed, but her own flagship was already caught in the crossfire, its shields failing rapidly under the overwhelming barrage. Within less than an hour, the once proud invasion fleet, larger and more powerful than the one that had failed at Colony Haven 9, was reduced to burning wreckage scattered across Earth's orbit. Admiral Kress's flagship, badly damaged but still functioning, drifted helplessly among the ruins of her fleet. On the bridge, surrounded by fire and sparking consoles, Cressa stared at the devastation in complete shock. "Send a distress signal," she said weakly. "Tell Empire High Command. Tell them everything." Back on Threxa Prime, the council chamber erupted into chaos as the devastating report arrived. Grand Chancellor Voss stood from his seat, his pale face filled with disbelief as he read the casualty numbers. "Impossible," he whispered. "An entire fleet. Gone. In less than 1 hour." General Threx, still standing in the center of the chamber, listened silently as the council members around him began arguing loudly, their confident voices from earlier now replaced with fear and confusion. "How could this happen?" one council member shouted. "Our report said humanity was weak," another cried out. "Perhaps," Threx said quietly, his voice cutting through the noise, silencing the room. "We should have listened when Commander Drall first warned us." All eyes turned toward him. "For years," Threx continued, "we studied humanity from a distance, mocking their fragile bodies, their short lives, their simple weapons. We never once considered that a species capable of surviving countless disasters throughout their own history might also be capable of great patience, great intelligence, and great deception." He paused, looking around the chamber at the shocked faces of the Empire's most powerful leaders. "We called them weak," Threx said, "but strength was never about their bodies. It was about their minds, their ability to adapt, to plan, to wait patiently for years, allowing us to underestimate them completely, right up until the exact moment they chose to reveal their true strength." Grand Chancellor Voss sank back into his seat, his earlier confidence completely gone, replaced by the heavy realization of what the Empire had truly lost. "What do we do now?" Voss asked quietly, no longer speaking with authority but with genuine uncertainty. Threx looked around the room one final time before answering. "Now," he said, "we learn from our mistake, or we continue to lose everything, one battle at a time, until there is nothing left of the Empire's pride." Millions of miles away, on Earth, Admiral Elena Cross watched the last of the Empire's wreckage drift silently through orbit. Beside her, Adrian Cole let out a long, tired breath, the tension of the past weeks finally beginning to fade. "It's over," he said quietly. Elena shook her head slowly, her eyes still fixed on the debris scattered across the stars. "No," she said. "This is only the beginning. The Empire will not simply accept this defeat quietly. They will regroup. They will study what happened here, just as we studied them for years." "So what happens next?" Adrian asked. Elena finally turned away from the screen, her expression calm but serious. "Next," she said, "we make sure the entire galaxy understands something clearly. Humanity is not a weak species to be conquered. We are a species that will always be ready, always be patient, and always be willing to fight for our right to exist." Outside, high above Earth's atmosphere, the wreckage of the Empire's mighty fleet continued to drift silently among the stars, a permanent reminder of the day the Kaldrath Empire underestimated humanity and lost everything because of it. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again. The end.